Okay, well, we might make a start then. So welcome to the third webinar in our Athlete Pathway series. My name's Vicky Saunders and I will just be your gracious host today. We actually have a fantastic presenter, Charlotte Woods, who you can see on the screen here as well. Charlotte is our communications manager here at the Brand Builders. And so while she teaches a lot of the athlete mentoring sessions, she's also responsible for all of our social content. This topic is a really important one, and she'll be exploring how your athletes can create purposeful and engaging content that brings their brand to life. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. So at the Brand Builders, some of you already know us. You've attended some of these webinars, or you're our clients. You've worked with us over the years. But for people who don't know about us, some of the words that you see on the screen, I think, underpin everything that we do. We lead from the heart. We're very holistic in our approach to athlete pathway education. We've got a commercial mindset, but it's underpinned by values. And we know that these are people that we're working with. They're not commodities. They're not just athletes. These are whole human beings, and the way that we contribute to their pathway is very much about seeing them as individuals, empowering them with the ability to navigate their pathways with confidence and clarity and purpose. And this approach has allowed us to work globally for the last 7 years. We work with organisations like the US Olympic Committee, Sport England, Sport Singapore. Here in Australia, we're actually running a national program with the AIS on personal brand. And every kind of organisation in between, from very small sports clubs right through to professional teams and leagues. Our approach allows us to support the objectives and needs of the organisation as well as the athletes. And we absolutely love what we do, which I hope shines through in these webinars that we're giving to you guys. The webinar series themselves are for athlete advisors and athletic directors, the supporters and advisors of athletes, rather than the athletes themselves. So the information that we're sharing with you is professional development as opposed to the athlete education. So we'll share concepts and ideas and the kind of stuff that you would want to know to be able to guide and support your athletes. So I'm going to pass over to Charlotte now for the next half an hour or so, and then I'll jump back in when it's time for the Q&A session. We've already got some questions that have been sent to us, but in the meantime, feel free to jump in and add your questions either in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll get to answering those in about half an hour. Over to you, Charlotte.
Thank you, Vicky. I am delighted to be here today. Social media and content production is one of my favorite topics to discuss. It's part of most athletes' everyday life now, but despite this, there's still a lot of fear and confusion and self-doubt, as well as myths surrounding social media. So I'm really excited to debunk some of those myths and talk more about how athletes can take a simplified yet really effective approach to creating compelling content for their social media, and an approach, importantly, I think, that doesn't cause them extra stress, which we know is important for their performance and overall mindset and well-being. So today we'll be taking a look at why social media is important, why athletes use social media, how to make it purposeful, and like I said, how to keep it really simple and real and authentic. I do want to preface today's webinar by saying that we're not going to be talking about algorithms or analytics or trends. They are important, but really today's focus is on content production and solving one of the most common problems athletes face on social media. The problem being that there is a tried and tested, indestructible, bulletproof, foolproof formula that athletes can use if they want to be successful on social media. But before we do that, I do want to take just a quick step back and talk about why social media is such an important topic for athletes to learn about and to really nail. Social media is essentially an online playground that athletes have almost total control of. It offers them a whole range of incredible benefits, and it allows them to engage with their fans and build meaningful relationships with them, which is great for athletes who are looking to build a global fan base, or even bring global attention to their sport, or even attention to the sport or themselves outside of their local community or state. It is a great place for them to communicate and grow their brand. It can help them attract sponsors, as well as offer benefits to sponsors, such as content production, hosting, and promotion. It's great for athletes who are planning on carrying messages, either their own messages or the messages of their sports organization or sponsor or any other brand they're affiliated with. And then finally, many athletes want to build a long-term network or community that they can continue to nurture and leverage long after they've transitioned out of sport. And social media is a great place for them to do this because it helps them to really tend to and nurture those relationships over time. It's also great for athletes who are looking to build businesses, do public speaking, retain sponsors. Social media, it's really helpful for all of this. So social media is this hugely beneficial platform that almost every athlete has access to and can use. But like I said, there is this one common trend that's holding a lot of athletes back from creating that consistent, compelling content. And what I don't think people consider enough is just having fun on social media and enjoying it. Because again, like I said, that means it's not causing them extra stress. It's not causing them extra pressure, which is important for performance and mindset and their overall well-being. So for a while now, there has been this super top secret, hush-hush social media formula that athletes all over the world have convinced themselves is the only way to find success online, whatever their definition of that is. It's a formula that most of the athletes that I've mentored or worked with or spoken to have been using and have been held back by. And I bet you've seen it before. You might have seen it in a slightly different iteration, but it's the same kind of theory. And I can't speak for all athletes, of course, only the ones that I've worked with, but I bet you've seen it before in some capacity. So it is training pics plus competition pics plus food pics plus maybe a picture of my pet equals huge online success. Now, there is nothing wrong with this formula. These are great standalone pieces of content, and they're also great working together. The problem is that it's become the only formula. Athletes think it's the only way to do social media. It's the only approach that you can take that will help you be successful. And it really, unfortunately, holds a lot of athletes back from finding success and being themselves online. It can feel like they're always performing and that there's no room for creativity. And sadly, over time, that formula becomes a rule book. They start saying, I can't post that. That's not what people want to see. That won't get any likes. It's not in the formula. And like I said before, I stumbled upon this through working with athletes. I started hearing a lot of common phrases from them directly about what they're struggling with on social media. I always ask athletes before I do any work with them, whether it's content creation, production, strategy, whatever it is, I ask them, do you enjoy using social media? 10% of the time, they say, yes, I love it, it's awesome. Often they're marketing students, which I think is interesting. 70% of the time, they say, meh, I don't hate it, but I definitely don't love it. If I could live without it, I probably would. And then about 20% of the time, they say, nope, I actively shy away from it at all costs. I do not want to be on social media. I'm not on social media, or I just am not enjoying being on there. When I talk to them, I ask them why they don't use social media, why they don't like it. And these are some of the most common phrases that I hear. I don't have enough content to post regularly. I don't know what to say. I don't want to post what everyone else does. I have a lot of trouble posting consistently. I would say that's the top one, the one that I hear the most. Will anyone even want to see the content I'm interested in posting? And I'm worried people will think I'm not being myself. I believe that for athletes, or anyone for that matter really, to achieve success online, you have to go into it with the right mindset. Think about it. You are sharing your most personal moments with not only your friends and family, but also virtual strangers. So if you're not going in with the right mindset, you're not going to be consistent, you're not going to be happy on there, you're not going to enjoy it, and that will ultimately affect what you post and how you post it. So let's dig a little bit deeper. This is something that I love to do. I love to overanalyze. Let's dig a little bit deeper and think about how this so-called perfect formula is affecting how athletes approach social media. I don't have enough content to post regularly, aka I actually don't have training pics and competition pics and food pics, and I don't have a pet. I don't have enough of this content to post it regularly because I'm being restricted by the formula. Will anyone even want to see the content I'm interested in posting? What happens if I break the rules? Will my online world implode? I have a lot of trouble posting consistently. I'm not being myself when I follow the formula, and it's exhausting doing an impression of someone else all the time. I don't know what to say. I'm not a script writer. How do I write lines for this fake version of myself? I don't want to post what everyone else does. I know I don't want to follow the formula. So what's the point in posting? And finally, I'm worried people will think I'm not being myself. I know I'm not being myself when I follow the formula, and people are going to notice. Now, you might have noticed, like I said before, a slightly different version of this formula floating around. Perhaps we could replace pets with pictures of friends and family. The point is, any kind of so-called perfect formula is restrictive, and it stops athletes from creating compelling and authentic content. It's really born from the idea that an athlete is all that. They're just an athlete. That's all that they are. They train, they compete, they fuel up, and maybe they have time for a pet or a friend, and that's it. But we know, as people who work with athletes, that there's so much more than this. And the formula is actually just a reflection of a stereotype, a boring stereotype. Athletes are so much more interesting than this one formula. And there's real, authentic, interesting, engaging content that they can be created that doesn't fit into a formula like this. So I would like to show you a better way or an alternative way, depending on how you look at it, for athletes to create content that is true to who they are and is interesting and engaging and compelling. It's much simpler, it's not formulaic, and it's sustainable, meaning it won't go out of style in 3 weeks' time, which is really important. It's all about, going with my baking a cake analogy formula, it's all about adding new ingredients to the secret formula. Guess what these ingredients are? It's pretty simple. It's pretty good. They're everything that the athlete already is. It's their brand, their personal brand, which if you watched the session that Vicky did just before about personal brand is just who the athlete already is. It's not about creating a fake identity or making themselves into this sellable commodity. It's just who they are. It's their message, how they want to be seen, their code of conduct, their passions, their interests, their visual style, and their values. And all of that makes really amazing, incredible content that isn't a hassle to post. It doesn't fit in a formula. And it means that they can be as strategic or as relaxed as they like about creating content. For example, if they've got a secret interest in photography that they've not shared online yet, they can post about that. If their passion is to do with gender equality, they can post about that. So it's about looking for inspiration in who they are and what they already do, and stepping outside of those restrictive formulas, and really just having fun with social media. Adding these new ingredients to the formula gives athletes purpose and clarity and direction. It's a new formula, entirely of their own creation, which is always the best kind. And suddenly social media becomes a joyful activity, an exciting activity for athletes. It's fun to create content. It's exciting. They're eager to do it. Social media is now a place where they get to be themselves, build and find community, and start acting on those great benefits we were talking about before: network building, sponsorship, communicating their brand. And like I said before, they can be as strategic or as relaxed as they like with an approach like this. And I did promise that we wouldn't talk about trends, but I will break my own rules really quickly. Authenticity really does matter online. It's actually the biggest trend at the moment. Social media in general has been criticized as being just a big old long line of highlight reels posted in crisp HD. But this is really changing, and we're looking to see more authenticity, real people posting real moments online. So in a sense, this is a trend. And if you like following trends, it's definitely one to keep an eye on and for athletes to look into. So now I would like to show you what this approach can look like in action. This is Chantel Thompson, who will actually be presenting one of these webinars in a few weeks' time on storytelling. Chantel is an incredible human being and athlete, and she is a great example of how athletes can use their brand to guide what they post. So here's what you need to know about Chantel. She is a proud Barkinji and European woman. She is a world champion athlete. She's a mum of 3 kids. She's a social justice advocate, a business owner, and she regularly shares her story through public speaking, as well as hosting workshops on storytelling, personal development, and finding the warrior within. Chantel is multifaceted and multi-layered in the roles she carries and her dreams and the work she does. And you can see that in what she posts. So let's go through some of Chantel's most recent posts, because I think they're a great example of how athletes can use their brand to guide what they post in that authentic, real way that doesn't follow a formula. So I'll give you 10 seconds to take a look at what we've got on the screen there in her post and see what you can spot as a clue to her brand and how she's using that to guide what she posts. Okay, time's up. So she says it's only 6:30 a.m. and I am already onto a post-breakfast snack. which I think is very relatable. And she says, thank goodness for Indigi Earth green tea. So there's a few things going on here. Firstly, we've got an Indigenous brand, which, like I said before, Chantel is an Aboriginal woman. This is part of who she is. She shares it all across social media. That doesn't fit in a formula. There's a few other things as well. She's talking about the warrior within, which I mentioned before. That's one of the things she speaks on. So that's in a hashtag. And she's also showing you what it's like to live her life. She's up at 6:30 a.m. in the morning and she's doing work and she's at a computer and she needs this fuel. This is her life. It's not a formula. It's just what she does. And she's using that to guide what she posts. You could put this in a plan, but it's also probably just come to her off the top of her head, which is great for athletes who don't like to plan or don't have the time for it. So again, it's really guiding them in a nice, sustainable, authentic way. Next, we've got this post about one of the keynote speeches she's involved in, the event, and she talks about sport and gender equity and inclusion. And she's there to talk about changing the game. So again, we can see that she's involved in public speaking work. We can see what she talks about. So many athletes do public speaking. It's a great way for them to carry messages and also make some extra income. But funnily enough, they very rarely post it. I would say 70% of athletes do some kind of public speaking work at least once a year, and you very rarely see them post it on social media. But Chantel doesn't shy away from this because she knows this is part of who she is. This is part of her brand. This is her communicating her brand. Next, we've got a serious post from Chantel about how all children in detention in the Northern Territory are Indigenous. And she's bringing attention to this and calling it out. Again, this is not something you can put in a formula. You cannot put this stuff in a formula. This is just who Chantel is. This is what she stands for, what she believes in. It's her message, her values, all of that are coming to light, and she's shining a light on them in a post like this. It's also obviously helped her source outside content, which is a great thing for athletes to do. You don't always have to be creating fresh content. And when you know what you're looking for, you know what your brand is, it's very easy to spot other things like news articles and content from other athletes or influencers or brands that you want to share as well and bring attention to. Like something like this. This is part of who Chantel is, her cultural ancestry and what she believes and what she wants to bring attention to. Next, we've got a post about Chantel dancing in solidarity to heal our nation and Mother Earth. So obviously, again, we've got her cultural ancestry is coming here, it's coming through. But also, like I said before, she's a mum. She has 3 kids. And you can see them in this post. They're with her. She's sharing that culture with them and also with all of us. Then we've got Chantel appearing on an Indigenous news program called The Point. So again, we can see who she is coming through. You can also see her visual style here, which is something that you can definitely communicate on social media. So she's wearing the Australian Indigenous colours. She's got the flag as a pin. And also she was there to talk about her story and that she had been appointed NAIDOC's Sportsperson of the Year. So again, everything that Chantel is, all these elements of her are coming together in these posts. You can't put this in a formula. You really can't. She just knows who she is and what she stands for and what her brand is so strongly that she's able to do this, probably a lot of it off the cuff, and not putting it into a plan, although that's definitely something you can do and is a great way, and I do encourage that. And then last post, this is actually a post by Vicky, who you just saw before, who you know. And I think this is a great example of how what you post guides what other people say about you. So in this, Vicky's talking about how some of the work she did with us and some of a few AFL players was really going to be helpful for them in showing them that her story will show them that there is more to being an athlete than just sport. And isn't that everything that Chantel has shown us in what she posts? She's more than just an athlete. She is an Indigenous woman. She's a businesswoman. She's a mother. She's a social justice advocate. She's an incredible human being. She's complex. There's more to her than training pictures and competition pictures and pet pictures and food pictures. She's got all this other great stuff going on in her life that she can talk about and share on social media. So the thing that I really love about this approach to social media is that it might seem kind of complex or complicated, but it's actually remarkably simple. And simplicity really is the ultimate sophistication, especially for athletes who are so busy in everything else that they do. So if you can give them the tools to enjoy social media and have fun and make it about just showing who they are, that makes their time on there more successful and enjoyable. So when we unpack this approach and we reveal that this is a really simple way to approach social media that threads together the unique elements of an athlete with some different themes and with the golden thread of their values woven throughout, as well as their code of conduct, keeping them accountable, helping them to apply real world behaviors and words to their online world so that they don't paint an entirely different picture of who they are and what they stand for online versus offline. Or, importantly, worry their sports organizations or brands about maybe being a little too authentic. Their code of conduct and their brand really helps keep them in check and make sure that they're doing what they are supposed to be doing and they're not doing anything that would worry or upset anyone. Every athlete is unique, and I know this is something we've been talking about this entire series. So their threads will be different colors and thicknesses and textures, but we apply this approach and this framework to allow each and every athlete to create and communicate their story and their brand in a way that is true to them. It's measured and structured without being formulaic or rigid, and it really gives them time and space to explore and experiment without committing to a long-term plan. It takes the pressure off of always coming up with new content ideas because they have a treasure chest, a library filled with snippets and ideas based on who they are and their own brand. My final tip that I'll leave you with is to really encourage your athletes, especially those that express dislike or disdain for social media, to take a simplified approach, to look within and find inspiration in everyday moments and from their own personal brand, their interests, their passions, both inside and outside of sport, their values and their message, essentially everything that makes them who they are and what they already know about themselves, not what's in a formula that someone else created. This kind of approach is sustainable. It is always in fashion, I promise you. It's not a trend that will disappear in 5 weeks or 5 years' time, and they won't have to create a new online persona every time the formula changes. All they need to do is quite simply, and I love this, be themselves. So I really thank you for joining me, and I love talking about this. It's such a exciting and interesting topic, but I'll hand back over to Vicky now.
Don't go
No,
anywhere.
I'm staying.
Stay with me. We'll do some questions. Okay, so thank you, Charlotte. Do you know, I just sat there listening to that and I learned more. Like this, I was, oh, I never thought about it that way. Like, I think when you unpack it in the way that you do, because you are quite analytical, but you're also creative, it gives me a different perspective. So thank you for that. So we've got some questions coming through, and everyone, if you do have questions, you can pop them through in the Q&A feature. I'm way too relaxed. I've been sitting back having a coffee.
Good.
Get back to work now. Okay, so fantastic questions coming through. We actually had one from Mark Potter emailed to us, and it was, how does an athlete know which is the right social media platform to use?
I get this one all the time. My biggest tip is you don't have to be across all of them, and pick the one that you like the most. That's really simple. Pick the one that you like the most. If you love Instagram because it's visual, because it's more visual than it is written, then go with that. If you love Twitter because you're very political or you like to share your opinions, go with that. The one that you feel most confident on, you will be the most successful on. Again, it's everything that I've been talking about. It's authenticity and staying true to who you are, and that will be really helpful.
Yeah. Do you think that athletes do feel a certain amount of pressure to be on all
They
the platforms?
do, except for Facebook. Everyone's now saying Facebook is not cool anymore, especially the young ones. So they don't feel any pressure with that one. But yeah, you don't need to be across all of them. There's no point. Direct people to one specific place if you can, and that's fantastic. And just give all your efforts there if you want to, and that's fine.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And Susan Sly has a fantastic question about taking photos. So the photographs that athletes would use on social media. What do you think that they should use? Selfies or professional photos? Photos of them that obviously someone else has taken, or ones that they've taken themselves?
Yes. I would say one thing to consider is how comfortable you are in front of the camera. If you don't enjoy getting your photo taken, a professional photo shoot might really freak you out, and it will come through in the photos. There's nothing wrong with doing selfies or amateur photos. I would say try and get as high quality as you can. And there's also loads of great courses that you can do online to help you upskill in that area. How to take really great, almost professional looking photos on your iPhone. So I would say whatever you have access to. Not everyone can afford to do a professional photo shoot or get photos taken. So don't worry if all you've got is your iPhone or a Nokia. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I think that variety, like if you're having a professional photo shoot for some reason, share those and maybe share the behind the scenes.
Yes.
I always think that's more interesting. And I guess, keeping it real, again, if they're all just images that someone else is taking of you and they're what's the word, structured and you've set it up, then that's maybe not giving the full story, and it might fall a little bit flat after a while. People may feel they can't really connect with the real you. It's a bit superficial. But then at times they probably do want to see that, so it's that relationship building through social media.
Yeah, building community. And really, if you do want to build community and that long-term community that I was talking about, you have to be yourself. People will very quickly egg on to the fact that you're being someone else and it's not real.
So Brock Greenhaig has a question that's just perfect for you, Charlotte. Some athletes may be introverted in their personalities and therefore reluctant to use social media to its potential. For this reason, how do we inspire them to do so? Now, you are the one, whenever we have athletes who are a bit introverted or quiet or shy, I say this is one for Charlotte, because you're perfect with them.
Yes, I relate to this because I am introverted and shy, and I don't enjoy using social media myself. So what I've always found really helpful, and I tell this to athletes and they come back and they tell me it's helpful, is to think of it as a business tool rather than sharing about yourself. So think of it like as a business. You as an athlete are a business. You're doing the accounts, the marketing, all of that. Social media is a great tool and a platform to help you get on there and share that. So if you can kind of almost remove yourself and step back, that can be really helpful. But also just knowing that people aren't judging you on social media the way you judge yourself. No one is scrutinizing your posts, I promise you, the way that you are scrutinizing them. So just get on there and get a feel for it and have fun and pick a platform that you like. Don't put pressure on yourself. to go across all of those different platforms. If you like Twitter because it's more about talking, or if you like Instagram because maybe you can be a little more shy or introverted on there, start there and start small, and just share what you can. And it's okay not to share every single moment of your life on social media. That's fine.
I know that some of the athletes that I've worked with over the years, a big thing has been purpose. So what's the reason that you're on social media? Do you enjoy it? Do you want to grow your brand? And this it all comes back to those elements you put up on the screen before. What is your brand? What is your passion? Or what are your passions and interests? And so if some of their ambitions might include a certain career path, or becoming an artist, or getting sponsorship, there's a reason. There's a purpose for being online. Or maybe it's to carry a message. Maybe it's to inspire other people to do something, maybe to get involved in sports. So if they've got that reason, then again, it's less about them and it's bigger. You know, they're actually being of service to their community. They're giving something, they're being generous. And so it's less about everyone's looking at me, I don't want the attention. It's more about how can I achieve something that's important to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question, Brock. What else? Oh, some great questions. This is fantastic. I better just keep an eye on the time. Okay, we've got a few more minutes. Great. Sally Phillips, do you have any advice on helping an athlete set their code of conduct? Yes, and it's in one of the previous webinars, isn't it? It's about athlete brand.
Mm-hmm.
That's really where it lives. So setting that foundation of understanding about how they want to be seen, how they want to be behaving and interacting. So yeah, I'll send you a link for that, Sally. Okay, from Sarah Blundell. I hope I've pronounced that properly. Platforms like Facebook and Instagram have hashtags, etc. Do you recommend they use the same hashtags repetitively, or try to use a broad range of hashtags to gain more followers?
Okay. Yes. So there is two purposes for using hashtags. Like you said, bring new people in. That's useful for Instagram, not so much Facebook. Or to communicate a message. So we saw Chantel do that. She talked about the warrior within before 5 a.m. So she sort of strengthened the message and the overall copy through those hashtags. If you were an ambassador for a campaign, you could put that in a hashtag. They've probably already got a hashtag going. So it depends what you want to use it for. And you can certainly use a combination. You might not have a message in your post about what you're wearing today. That's fine. And use your strategic hashtags there. So it just depends what you want to achieve with those hashtags.
Could it also be, and I know because I've done this for something, I did it for a charity project where we got everybody to use this very unique hashtag so that if we did a search, we could see everybody's posts about that particular charity project. It's not a perfect thing, but could an athlete maybe do that? Say if they wanted to not just share their Instagram feed, but specific posts with a potential sponsor. So if you look up Charlotte Woods Athlete Extraordinaire, that's very long, don't use that one. You know, that you could actually share that hashtag with a potential sponsor or something like that.
Yes, 100%. And it's really great, good for if you want to like start your own movement. So a lot of people in the body positivity movement do it, and they'll start something about, say the hashtag is body positivity. That's a bad hashtag. Don't use that. And so everyone can share stuff, and you create that sense of community within the actual hashtag itself. And so people can go there and they can find posts and find inspiration. So if an athlete wants to carry that message or start something around their passion, they can definitely do that with hashtags and create a community through hashtags, which is an interesting and a really good thing to do.
Yeah. Phoebe Rothfield has, it's a thought more than a question, she says, but it's interesting. She finds with her athletes that if they upload anything other than the sport they do, they lose followers and their engagement goes down.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it is a sport by sport basis on the formula.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So it can happen. I'm not going to say that that's not going to happen. What I encourage you to do at the same time, you also, let me say this first, you don't care about the people that you lose. That's not important. If you have a purpose and you want to share more than just your sport, it doesn't matter if those few people go away. They weren't really engaged anyway. But what I encourage is to bring new followers in at the same time if you do lose them. So when you start posting about, say, your passion for photography, you might lose a few people who are only interested in your sport, but you'll bring in new people who want to see your photography passion and then bring attention to your sport and who you are. So, you know, it swings both ways. There's benefits and a few downsides.
Thank you. So there are a few more questions that we have not had a chance to answer. So what we'll do is we will answer you guys either via email or in a social post. We'll decide, won't we, Charlotte? We'll see what's what makes sense, because then that way everybody gets to share and learn together.
Yep.
So unfortunately, we've come to the end of this fantastic presentation. Charlotte, thank you so much. That was really interesting. And I know that, you know, we've got about 55 people watching, and each one of those is going to be able to go away and apply something to add to the fantastic work that they're already doing with athletes. So let's have a look and see what we've got coming up next week, next fortnight actually. It's me, I'm back. Not that I ever really went away. Love a microphone and a camera. So I'll actually be talking about presentation skills. It's a really important topic for athletes, because when they've got the ability to present and speak and communicate with confidence and clarity and purpose, they're able to do so much. They can get public speaking work. They can communicate with the media. They can create great social media content. They can have interesting and engaging conversations at events and at dinner. It really empowers them with the ability to communicate their story, their message, and their brand with clarity and confidence. So for anybody who has not watched the previous 2 webinars before today's one, we'll be sharing the video links with everybody again after today's session. Feel free to share this with your colleagues. The more the merrier. We really see this current situation in the world as a fantastic opportunity for us to all collaborate and share and learn together. And we've got people tuning in from America and from New Zealand and Singapore and China and Australia. It's very, very diverse audience, which is fantastic. And you can find out more about us. We'll send a few links in an email to everybody. But again, as Charlotte said, thank you guys so much for being part of this. It's such a privilege for us to be able to share what we do and how we do it, and to, you know, give a little bit to the people who are doing so much for the athletes of the world. And that's really what we exist for. So thank you very much. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks.